Let us help you reach your peak in retirement. It's time for Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Back for another episode of Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee, managing partner at Elevated Retirement Group. And we're going to talk about hindsight a little bit on this episode of the podcast, because the phrase knowing what I know now is mostly crap. It's mostly worthless, right?
Right.
We all say it about all sorts of things in life, but it doesn't really do a hell of a lot of beans, right? But we always do it. Oh, man, if I just knew what I knew now, things would be better. So we want to talk about that in a way where we can be constructive moving forward and look at some situations where maybe we can kind of cut that off at the pass for others who are checking out the podcast, who are feeling kind of similar to some of these statements and haven't yet pulled that trigger, and it gives them a chance not to have to live that hindsight moment. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good.
Yeah, hanging out? Doing all right?
Yeah, we're doing good. Just staying busy. Kids are busy.
That's good. That's good. Well, let's jump in and tackle a couple of these, shall we?
All right.
So think about the economic times we're in right now, Sean. We got bank failure issues. We've got, interest rate issues still going on. We've got inflation issues still going on. We've got, I'm not painting a pretty picture here, am I? We got market volatility. And a lot of it's pretty similar in a lot of ways to 2007-8, right? There's still a lot of things happening causing issues. And so for the people who jumped out or got burned or whatever in 07-08, and maybe stayed out of the market too long. Now, we had a 13-year incredible bull run after that financial crisis in 08. And for many people, they missed half of it because they were so scared they didn't get back in on time. And we could be looking at a similar situation for folks now who are trying to or thinking about getting out or not sure what to do. And if they jump out and they pull out, not only do you lock in those losses, but then you start wondering, well, how long do I wait to get back in? And then you start living in that hindsight moment.
As you were talking about this, the movie that came to mind is Back to the Future. I don't know if you
Right. I
remember.
love that movie. It's great.
Like, if you go back into time, you can't alter time, or it will affect the future. And, you know, Biff, he actually goes back in time and he invests in all this crap and he becomes super wealthy. And I can't remember if it was Back to the Future 2 or 3.
I think that was 2. Yeah.
You look at that, it's like, oh, well, had I known in 2009, I would have invested in Tesla. Or,
oh yeah, I should have got Apple in 1983.
Exactly. But when you start to look at what's gone on and people that are scared of the markets or running for the hills, there's usually 2 reasons why that happens. First reason is that they're listening to the media, and the media is creating chaos in their mind, right? So there's whoever they're listening to is talking about the doom and gloom, the bad that's happening economically. And even in today's day and age, there's a lot of doom and gloom that's being portrayed, but there's, the underbelly actually looks pretty decent. There are some really positive things going on economically. The other reason that people get scared and run is because they don't have a clearly defined path. They don't understand how their plan is built, right? So, when we look at doing a review, and I talk a lot about the effect an advisor has on a portfolio, whether it's here on the podcast or with our clients or whatever it may be. But, we start to look at attribution and the effect that we have on a portfolio. And there's been a lot of studies that have come out and said a good, well-structured plan should add 2% net of fees to your portfolio. So we look at attribution. Mm-hmm. And attribution is, one of 3 areas. An advisor can have an effect on a portfolio based on allocation. They can have an effect based on interaction, right? So interaction is like, how much do we rebalance? Are we reinvesting dividends quickly? Things like that. Mm-hmm. And then an advisor can have an effect on a portfolio based on stock selection. Okay. Those are the 3 effects that you can have, and those 3 effects will attribute to the benefit or negativity of a portfolio. Mm. And so when we look at that, that's something that we actually track in our reviews. So even though that we're, the markets are down, we welcome reviews, because at this point in time, we can have a discussion around, here's how your plan is reacting. Is your plan still in good shape? But here's the effect that we're having. Here's how much we're attributing to your portfolio, whether it's 3% or 6% or whatever it is, over and above the benchmark. So if the benchmark's down 15, well, we surely better be down way less than that net of fees, or we're not attributing enough to the portfolio, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. And so, again, we want to make sure that we're kind of being proactive on this kind of thing versus living later on in that hindsight moment of shoulda, coulda, woulda. So,
exactly.
And it's very easy to do. And again, don't feel like, you're screwed something up if you are in this boat. It's just a matter of learning from our mistakes and moving forward because that's all we can do. But let's go on to another one here. So, again, we're taking some statements and some situations we've seen come across where people have these hindsight moments, and hopefully that prevents others by sharing these from maybe making the same one. And I kind of touched on this a little bit, and I think you kind of touched on it too, but we'll just kind of brush by it again here. Folks right now that are maybe nearing retirement and didn't realize how much risk they had in their portfolio until 22, right? Again, they were enjoying the high risk they were taking, Sean, in 20 and 21 because the market was fantastic, right? But in 22, you're no longer enjoying that risk level. And the hindsight here is they didn't take the time to get an analysis done to find out, are they taking too much? How exposed are they? Are they okay having that much out there in the event of a downturn? And of course, we had a downturn, and they may have lost 25%.
Well, history leaves clues, right? So
true.
I mean, if you didn't feel good in 08, you surely didn't feel good in 2022. Not because the losses were the same.
Even in the first 3 months, you could start to feel it coming, right?
Yeah,
by March, you knew it was coming.
If there's something in the pit of your stomach that doesn't feel right, there's usually something wrong. Mm-hmm. And we talk to our team. We do a lot of analysis and training and things like that. I'm like, hey, listen, if somebody isn't comfortable, there's usually a reason for that. And our job is to educate on the reasoning behind what's happening. So right. I don't care what's happening in a portfolio, whether you're up 40 or you're down 40. I want to know the why, because once we know the why, you can determine, am I okay with that why? Mm-hmm. If you are, cool, just ride the wave. If you're not, you should probably make some adjustments that are better suited for what your gut's telling you.
Yep, absolutely. And risk is a big one for that, right? And it's easy fix. Just get a risk analysis done. Sit down with your advisor if you're already working with one and say, hey, I'm feeling a little different. I don't know, something's changing. Let's take a look at this and see if are we just exposed too much, And you're going to have, in life, you're going to change, right? I mean, the risk tolerance is going to change different facets and different times of life. And it's easy to ignore those risks when everything's running like a champ, right? When the market's up, it's easy for us all to go, yeah, let's squeak out a little bit more, right? But you got to be realistic, especially depending on the time of life you're in, to say, okay, it's really great to keep making a little extra, but maybe we should take some of these winnings off the table. And that's what happens a lot of times with folks when they have too much risk for too long.
Exactly.
Let's go to number 3. The person who didn't really understand Social Security and kind of wish they would have waited, but they took it at 62, right? How many times have you seen somebody come in, Sean, that turned it on at 62 and then regretted not waiting till later because they didn't really make it part of their holistic strategy? It was more like, here's my accounts that I've saved, and and here's Social Security. But I already turned that on.
Yeah, or it's like, so-and-so told me down the street that Social Security was going to go away, so I should take it as early as I can.
I saw it on the news. They're always fighting about it on the news, right? So I got rid, whatever the case is.
I was like, oh, okay, well, all right. Well, at this point in time, because then once you take Social Security at 62, it kind of handcuffs you.
You're stuck.
Your income's lower, which is in some cases is okay. But in the case of my stepdad, he took it early. We had thought about it. We had strategically decided to take it at 62. But a year later, he's like, I want to go back to work. All right. Well, here's how much you can make. And so now you're restricted on the income limits that you can make. If you've taken Social Security early before you've hit full retirement age, or you get penalized. So, having a well thought out Social Security strategy is important to, one, determine what are your working years going to look like. Are you going to go back to work? Are you going to incorporate that? We just did this with another family where we had signed up for Social Security, and he's like, hold on, I think I want to consult. Okay, let's stop that because you're going to have all that other income coming in. But when you look at Social Security, think of Social Security as a benefit that you've earned, incorporate it into your plan the best way possible for your benefit, and put the least amount of stress on your portfolio, but also keep into account, hey, my life may change a little bit, and I have to understand the ramifications if I make financial income or whatever it may be.
Whatever it might be, right? And Social Security is that one that typically bites people because they do run and turn it on. They owe me, it's mine, whatever excuse you use. And a lot of times people wind up regretting turning it on early, or at least not having it, at least not finding out as part of an overall strategy if it was the right move. Maybe it is. It may be the right move to turn it on early. Or maybe it's the right move if you're a married couple for one person to turn it on early and the other person to wait, right? It's all about the strategy. Right. So exactly. But don't be in that hindsight situation and kind of, all right, well, again, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Find out and run a strategy. Get a portfolio, get a plan put together. And then you won't have to necessarily worry about making those, hindsight moments later on. Same thing let's go to our next one here, Sean. And that is what people are starting to feel like here recently. And of course, the conversation and the tax rates have added to this. But people kind of sitting there going, wow, I wish I would have put more money in more tax beneficial options, because the tax time bomb that I am sitting on is going to stink when I get to where I've got to start pulling. When they learn about RMDs, basically, if you're like 50, 55 or whatever, and you're learning about RMDs, that at some point in your 70s, you're going to have to start pulling money out of your 401, and you're going to pay all this tax money. Let's say you got $1 million sitting there. That is a hefty tax bomb, and it could only get worse if they raise taxes, which, by the way, if Congress does nothing, taxes are going up anyway, because they're going to return to what they used to be. So Roth IRAs, many people have found themselves wishing they would have known about them sooner or got into them sooner.
Well, they're becoming vogue again.
Oh, for sure, as well, yeah.
And, I get the idea that, you want the tax deduction now, and this whole mindset has been, well, defer taxes out as long as you can, and don't worry, you're going to be in another tax bracket. The strongest plans that we see, they have a combination of tax-deferred money, taxable money, and tax-free money. When you've got money in all those different buckets, strategically tax planning from a withdrawal perspective can become extremely valuable for you. And so we are seeing a lot of Roth IRAs, and even with the Secure Act 2.0 allowing employers to contribute post-tax dollars for an employee into a Roth 401k now. So those options are becoming more and more valuable and more widespread and used in today's day and age.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that tax time bomb is out there waiting, right? So you may still have time to avoid this one. This is a hindsight moment that you could kind of head off in the past. Even if you're 65 or 67, or basically if you haven't started taking RMDs yet, you still have time to maybe do something about some of that if it's the right move for you. But again, you want to make sure that you're talking with your financial professional before you just start willy-nilly doing conversions to make sure that you're doing it efficiently and correctly for the time of life that you're in. So final one, and this is one that I think most of us don't want to be in, Sean. It's that retiree who finds out that or realizes that they retire too early and they have to go back to work. Not want to, not because they're bored, but because they're financially in a pickle.
Right. And that's tough, because when I see this happen, it's usually retirement happens without consultation of an advisor. It's, they gave me a lump sum benefit, I'm going to take it. Or, my boss just made me angry today, I'm out of here. Or, whatever it may be. But there's retirement without consultation, retirement without a plan. And in some cases that can cause disastrous, because then we've sat down with people who have already done this. We're like, hey, you got to come up with something. You've got to create income somehow, some way. And that's never a fun discussion.
Well, we have three options, right, Sean? Like, we can either spend less, right, save more, or go back to work.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. And, nobody really wants to do any of those. So if we can plan, maybe we can head that off at the pass.
Well, and I was talking to Daniel in our office about a potential family that he was working with who actually ended up not working with us. And I said, walk me through it. And he was going through and he said, Sean, they had a goal income of $80,000. I said, okay, that makes sense. That doesn't seem out of line or whatever it may be. He said from their assets, though, they had to pull 60 out. And he's like, their plan just couldn't handle that. So I told them, you can't get $8,000 a month. Your plan can only get $7,200 a month. That's the sustainable amount. And that's with including Social Securities and then withdrawals. I said, okay. I said, well, what happened? He said, well, they went to another advisor and the advisor told them $8,000 a month is no problem. I said, well, that as long as you can stand behind your work and you can be confident that, hey, you did everything in your power to educate that individual, it's not your problem anymore.
Yeah.
Like it's you did what was right. You told them the issues if they went to $8,000 a month, and maybe they were sold a bill of goods or a bag of goods or whatever it may have been, but maybe they weren't. Maybe that advisor had way better strategies, which is doubtful because we all have the ability to use the same vehicles. But stand behind that. You were confident that that's the income max that they could get without blowing themselves up. And if you're confident, I'm confident, and we're fine with it.
Yeah, and I think, again, working with the right professional for you for each situation, to your point, sometimes, people will say, well, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go there. And it's really there's a lot of the tools are basically the same, but it's finding the right personality. I personally would feel better about working with a firm where they're like, this is not the answer you necessarily want to hear, but this is the answer.
Right.
Because that means, okay, we have time to maybe make some of those changes. Because if you're just sugarcoating everything for me, then how am I going to know if I truly get into trouble?
Exactly.
And it's really important to have the right things laid out there. So, again, no reason to have hindsight when you have a good strategy in place. So reach out to Sean and the team and get started today if you need some help. If you're already working with them, consider sharing the podcast or referring the podcast over to someone who might enjoy the content and the message as well. You can find it at Apple, Google, Spotify, all those major podcasting platforms. And, of course, everything is right there at the website, elevatemyretirement.com. That's elevatemyretirement.com to catch new episodes as well as check out past episodes. Sean, thanks for your time, my friend. As always, I appreciate you.
Awesome, man. Thank you.
Have a great week, and we'll see you next time here on Retirement Elevated with Sean Lee.
Investment advisory services offered through Elevated Capital Advisors, LLC, and SEC Registered Investment Advisor.